We're back again today with a very special guest, one of my former teammates and the smartest guy in soccer, Ollie White. It's great seeing you again, mate. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, bro. Thanks for having me on.
So you grew up in Belmont, Mass. Tell us about life there, like living outside of Boston. Obviously, it's a pretty good place to live as well.
No problem. Definitely shout out to Belmont is where I was born and raised and lived most of my life. And I'm really fortunate that it gave me it's a really small town. It's a little bit to the north of Boston. So it gave me a great opportunity to just like fall in love with sports and soccer and be able to play and make some of my best friends in a small town where I don't think I was under so much pressure of growing up in like a big city like Boston or even like Cambridge or Worcester when it's so competitive that I really appreciate being able to develop my love for sports early before it got very competitive.
Yeah, so obviously you played soccer at Noble and Greener, like high school, where you were also a dual sport athlete playing baseball at the same time. How was your time there and how did that come about? Like,
Oh yeah, that was so. For basically my whole life, I was the kid that always wanted to play new sports, always wanted to play basketball after school, and then the next day it was hockey, next day it was tennis and all that stuff. So I knew honestly when I got to high school, I would be playing less sports than usual. But I was deliberately I made a choice that I wanted to have a fall sport and a spring sport. Just they weren't it wasn't as much overlap, and I really could be competitive in both sports. Unfortunately, when it got to around junior senior year, I had to make a lot of decisions in terms of missing baseball games in the spring to go to get recruited for soccer because there are only so many windows where you really can show up and the right coaches will be there to see you. So it became a little bit of a conflict, unfortunately. But overall, I have great memories of being able to live within those two separate social circles, but also two groups that are very normal and very prevalent in the school. So I really appreciate being able to work and like develop myself as a player, as a leader, as a competitor, not just in soccer, but in soccer and baseball.
yeah, how do you think baseball contributed to your success in soccer?
I think that's a great question, especially because I don't know if I have a specific answer, but I will know that like the way you train for baseball, and though obviously the joke is everyone like baseball players are fat, they never work out, but but I can assure you, we would train seriously and very intensely. And like that cross training above everything else was really important because while soccer is a lot, as you know, of fitness, long distance running, a little bit of leg lifting, baseball, if you're top heavy or bottom heavy, you're in trouble. You got to be really balanced all throughout. You got to be able to explode and have quick twitch muscles and be very fast, but also have a sort of stamina to really be able to mentally stay engaged for a long period of time. So another very, very big aspect that people really overlook is for me as a center fielder in baseball, you can go 4 innings without getting the ball, but then you can get the ball two plays in a row and you got to be sharp the whole time. And I think that translates really well to being a striker where that like you go 80 minutes without getting a chance and then you get one chance in the 81st minute. And if you bottle it like I do, then that's not good.
I was
But
just about to say that there.
but I know at least, even if I bottle it, I know that I've had the mental fortitude that I was at least ready for the chance in the 81st minute, even if I had only five touches the game before.
Yeah, so it must have actually helped you though in high school. You won two independent school league championships in your time there.
Mhm.
That must have been a great feeling, especially when you played such an important role in the teams.
I appreciate that. It definitely is amazing that I've created some amazing friendships that I still have to this day from soccer and baseball. But also, like the most pride I have is that I think my sophomore year we came in like 11th, something
Hmm.
terrible. We had like four wins, seven draws, and like six losses, or something like super mid all across the board. And then, as a very collective effort with the whole team, kind of just feeling like spited in a way. Junior year, we came out of the gates just flying, like we're going so hard and just have with so much vengeance that we just took the league by storm. We just ran the table. And then to be able to come back and do it again senior year, that was so awesome because I think we really did a good job developing a culture of winning and expecting to compete every second. And that actually transferred over senior year more than any other individual skill or any other individual person. So I'm so happy that for the rest of my life, I can say my last two seasons of high school soccer, we were the undisputed best team in the league.
Yeah, so do you think being able to stick together during the tough times contributed to the success in the long run?
I absolutely think so because I mean that sophomore year we had an incredibly talented team. All three of our captains played college soccer. We had a lot of good players, a lot of club players, and still it just didn't quite click. And then junior year, we actually just decided to go an even a little more simpler route. and we moved the people into other positions, but it really worked because we all had each other's back and because everyone was doing kind of a new role. We're like, all right, we'll work together. And then senior year, we actually had a lot of injuries. So we basically we won the league with I think 2 games to spare, and had some pretty rough injuries that like we were just really pushing to rehab, but we
Mhm.
still didn't get 2 key players, Jack Vogel and Alex Anskoff, across the line for our quarterfinal New England game, and we lost 1-0, and it was a tough result, but like overall, everyone was so happy that we put up our best numbers, even though we were depleted in terms of squad players. Like I personally started at center mid that game. Our right mid started at center mid, and I, who had been playing 9, started at center mid because we were that low on numbers. And still, like I don't think anyone has any regrets.
Yeah, but obviously it was a great at the end. You managed to get through and push through, won into school league championships. You were also named in ESPN Rise's 40 Best New England High School Soccer Players in 2011. Whoever was doing that must have been blind. Was that a surprise for you?
Honestly, yeah, massive surprise. So I received a like I think it was like a month before the season. ESPN High School Magazine like had a little blurb about me. Oliver White, the Nobles won the league last year, and I was like, oh my god, that's so amazing! Like this is the first time I've ever been in a magazine. I'm so proud. I'm so happy. And then a week before the season came out, I was in. I think that was the timing. I was in the top 40 list, and I was just like blown away. Like even getting the little thing like in early August was beyond my wildest dreams. So getting that recognition a week before the season started was really awesome, and I still have the magazine actually to this day.
Framed on the wall. So do you think that motivated you, like going into that season in 2012?
Absolutely. Honestly, like I one thing that I think we did really well is junior year, no one saw us coming. And then we just like bonded together and we pushed forward and we just knocked off the big teams, Belmont Hill, RL, like right away, just to stake our claim. But then senior year, we obviously had the target on our back, like with the Man City, we're the defending champions. So that in terms of getting that outside recognition, it actually helped a lot because it was distraction. It was just noise. It was hype that doesn't mean anything. And that made us closer as a team together because we all talked about, listen, we're predicted preseason #1, these awards, none of it matters. All that's important is how well we play on the field. And our coach, shout out to Steve Ginsburg, did a really good job conveying that message as well. So even though it was kind of a vain, irrelevant, hollow award, it brought us together closer as a team, I think.
Yeah, so it clearly spurred you on. And in 2012, you were named Massachusetts Gatorade Player of the Year. Talk to us about that. That must have been a special feeling both for you and your family, being recognized for all your hard work so far.
That was awesome. That was definitely one of the proudest things. One of the things I'm most proud of in my whole life because that even more than the ESPN magazine was a huge surprise. Because I personally didn't have I had a better statistical season my junior year than my senior year, and also I had plenty of friends who were absolute ballers. I'm sure you probably know Devin DeVoy was a
Yeah,
D in high school, went to Northeastern. Forrest Sisk was a baller. People like that. People like Don Machado, really good players, like all
yeah.
over the state. And so I just feel so fortunate that they gave it to me. And I think it was partially because Blazers had won State Cup. My club team had won State Cup the past year, as well as the ISL championship. But even so, like I thought there were so many other players, people who play academy with bigger profiles than me, people going to bigger name colleges. So it was just like total shock. I remember it was like either like a Tuesday or Thursday morning, and I was sitting in class and I saw a tweet that someone else tweeted, and they're like, so Gatorade tweeted it. I didn't see. Someone else quote tweeted it and tagged me and said, "Yo, my boy doing big things, like whatever." And I was like, "Huh?" And then I checked it out and I was like, "Whoa, this is awesome." I'm not gonna lie.
What did they give you for it? Was it like a trophy and stuff?
They give you like it's like a metal stand. Oh, it's like
Like
a
with a
glass.
Gatorade bottle inside?
They actually just send you an empty Gatorade bottle. It's just like it's a stand and it's like a glass piece on top that says 2012 Gatorade Player of the Year. But I really think like I mean obviously I'm super excited to win it, but the reason I won it is because the 2 teams I was on the best club team and the best high school team in the league, and that was all because both teams had massive emphasis on defense. Shout out my
Hmm.
club coach Francis Okara. He's a stalwart defensive coach for BU. Played at BU, played in the MLS, played in Nigeria, and just defense all the way. Like that was the first time I really played a 3-5-2, and like I wasn't scared because I had so much confidence in my back three that like I was just, okay, great. And then I had the same center defender, shout out Jack Vogel, who played he played sweeper for us at Nobles, then he played center in the middle of the three for us for Blazers. And like the whole time we were always confident because he's a centerman and right back by trade, but he's just like in his head, he's just nuts. Like he will put his head through a glass window to win a game. Like when we put him at center back, there was no going through him. And he was like, he would play games with blood on his face because he's just no. He's like, you can't stop me. Only I can stop myself. Like
They're the type of guys you need though. Like you need guys that are willing to like, run through brick walls for you, and
absolutely,
like it helps free up the creative players in the end.
Absolutely. And if I'm a striker and I see the service in the box and I can only get to it if I lay out and head it and I might get kicked in the face, if I know my defender's doing that back there, I'm definitely doing that up in the attacking third.
Yeah. You mean you want to get your looks away there?
You know, just when you got an ugly mug like this, you gotta score goals because then people won't care.
So you ended up at Harvard. What other schools were you looking at, like in the college?
I think in terms of schools that I looked at, it's a little bigger of a list than schools that were looking at me. But the schools that were on my short list were Amherst College, Harvard, Brown, and Georgetown, and BU.
Not bad, eh?
Decent. I just wish more schools wanted me. I don't know exactly what it was, but it partially because I knew from the beginning I wanted to go to Harvard because I knew people there. They said good things about the program, and I thought they were pretty competitive.
Yeah. Did you feel like during that whole like recruiting process, you had exposure across the full US, or do you feel like you were limited to certain regions?
Honestly, I did feel like I was limited. I'm not someone that will all out advocate for playing academy or playing MLS academy where you can play tournaments all over the country. But the club that I was for, we played Region 1 League and then we played Mass League. So we played all the teams in the New England area and some Mid-Atlantic teams, some New York teams. And we were definitely competitive across the board. But the reality is I don't think I ever was seen by Duke or UNC or UVA just because I wasn't down there.
Yeah.
I went to Castle and I went to Disney, which are awesome. And I recommend that for people who want to get recruited. But at the same time, those tournaments are massive. So like unless the coaches are really interested in you, you definitely got to make sure you reach out to them and say, this is my game schedule. This is the field. This is the time. This is who we're playing. This is why it's important.
Yeah. So there's actually an app now called ShowNext, which can help with that. And players can post their videos to the app, and coaches from all across the US will now have access to them, which will help remove like the boundaries to like access for kids that obviously can't go to the big showcases. Do you think that could have helped you like when you were starting the recruiting process?
Absolutely. I definitely think that one advice I want to give to all student athletes who want to get recruited is there are rules for the NCAA for coaches to reach out to you, but technically there are little restrictions for you reaching out to them. So it's so easy to be kind of dismayed and say, I sent 5 emails, I got 0 responses.
Mm-hmm.
But you understand that kids all over the country are sending these emails into coaches. So you can send an email this month and then another one the next month and then one the month after that. Because if they weren't interested, they're still not interested, so they don't care.
Yeah,
but if they were interested, then you keep bugging him and finally they'll get around to your stuff because they have thousands of emails coming in.
Yeah, it's like real life as well. Like you're applying for jobs,
Absolutely.
just keep applying. Like you might get rejected 100 times, but that one that takes a chance on you, that's the most important.
Absolutely. What are they going to say? No?
Yeah, exactly. Like
it's the same thing as not applying. But especially, I think if I had an app like that, it would have been very valuable in the way that when I first heard you describe it, I think it's awesome because it gives people a way to feel proactive.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously everyone was like, I will email a million coaches, I'll send my highlight videos, all that stuff. And that is great too, don't get me wrong. But if you have an app that can literally kind of walk you through the steps and say, these are the right things to do, this is how to go about it, and this is the channels to go through it, I think that gives people a really good way to say, okay, I'm checking off these boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, so how did you end up deciding to go to Harvard then?
It was kind of a combination of a school where I thought I could do very well in terms of playing personally, and also a combination of me really liking the school and the feel and the team. So my first choice, like in the earliest school I was involved with, was Georgetown, because I thought they could help me achieve the most in terms of playing professional, being a competitive college player, getting a good education. When their interest in me started to wane a little bit, unfortunately, then I started to widen my search and see what's really going on. And I think in terms of like a team that was very accomplished and very serious, Harvard and Brown were pretty comparable. but it was just a little more of my feel and my interaction with the team that pushed it over the edge for me.
So obviously you came in highly regarded and had high expectations at Harvard. What was your overall experience like there?
My overall experience was definitely positive, but it was also incredibly different than what I expected. So the coach that basically recruited me the whole time for about 2 years was my coach freshman year, and then he got fired January after my freshman season. So that was totally threw everything out the window. And then from there, we went through a process of hiring a new coach. The new coach was hired, I believe, in March, showed up after spring break, and then from there, it was just a whole different experience. So I went from playing a good amount freshman year to starting the first 3 games sophomore year to not playing basically at all the rest of that year, having a really, really tough offseason where I had to really work and try to get myself back into the squad. Started off junior year not playing really at all. And then halfway through junior year and then leading into the Ivy League season, I started a lot and played almost every game and won Most Improved Player, which is something I may even be a little more proud of that than the Gatorade Player of the Year, because it showed that I really could have the fortitude to come back and balance everything in my life to push myself forward in terms of soccer. And then senior year, I probably started 70% of the games. So my overall experience was really up and down, and that's something I'm proud of, to be able to fight and get myself back. But it was definitely a positive overall, because it taught me so much that I took to the next level in terms of being able to push yourself and really be motivated and focused and professional. Because in college, even though you are obviously doing everything yourself, you have your teammates, you have your classmates, you have your roommates.
Yeah.
We all want to do the same thing. As you know, before you even got to Northeastern, when you played for Celtic, when you play at a high level, you are an individual professional. Like, everyone wants you to do well, but if you get hurt, then it's next man up.
No one cares. Like, it's all right, everyone's in it for themselves.
Right. And so it's something that I kind of like, when the new coach came in my sophomore year, I think we had a good enough relationship, but it was still like, because he wasn't playing me, it felt like it was me against him. It obviously wasn't, and that's a way a lot of college players feel, unfortunately, because the system is set up the way it is. But in terms of being able to hold myself accountable and turn my play around and really push until I just was playing my best soccer, that was something that was so valuable to me at the next level.
Yeah, that's like, it kind of resonates as well with the professional game. Like, it's all about your luck and who likes you. And it's the same at college level as well. Like, you could be doing everything possible, but the coach just might not fancy you. And I experienced that a few times as well. Like, obviously, there was a few changing coaches at Northeastern. Like, over my course, I went from starting like nearly every game freshman year, playing most of my sophomore year, to hardly playing junior year, and then playing most of my senior year. But every game I either played or come on, like in the sophomore and junior years, where I was kind of up and down. Like, I'd scored or assisted in, or like I'd played well in. So that was like I was making a difference. But coaches can sometimes have it in their mind that they have a system that they want to play, and you might not fit into that, but you can't let it deter you from pushing on, because end of the day, senior year comes around, like, it's a short space of time, and you have to be able to look back on it and be like, all right, did I work as hard as I could have?
Absolutely. And that's so key, that because, like, you're right, that senior comes around and you're like, when I'm looking back, I don't want to leave no regrets. I want to leave nothing on the table. And also at the same time, like you're saying, coach might have a certain system, but then one player goes down and he has to put someone in a new position. Is he going to pick the person who plays as hard as they can, puts their head down, or the person who only plays hard when they're in their position, or only plays hard when they feel like it?
So obviously, during your time at Harvard, you were named to the Ivy League honor roll. Oh, it's a bit of an accomplishment there, smart ass.
Yeah, I think the person who did that also got fired. Same I don't know how that happened.
How many people did you pay off in your time there? They talk about corruption in these Ivy Leagues. Is that?
Maybe. I think it was probably just like in comparison to every other like person on the team. Like, maybe my GPA was like high compared to them, but like still,
you're not giving yourself enough credit here.
I know I didn't have the highest GPA on the team, so also I will say the week I got selected to the honor roll, I scored. So like,
that's probably why. Yeah, they were like, all right, we should probably give it to him.
Yeah, he's never gonna win anything else. So
so, like, obviously education plays such a pivotal role in like the college system and the college experience. How important would you say education is overall to student athletes?
Absolutely important. I think it's super important, and it's not important enough. we both understand firsthand that when you're traveling down to James Madison one weekend and then flying to Florida Gulf Coast or going up to Cornell the next weekend, it's hard. It's very tough to keep track of your assignments, keep track of your office hours, all that stuff. But at the same time, definitely the advice I want to give to all student athletes who want to get recruited to play college sports, education is twice as important as you think. Because if you want to go to a really good school that's also really good at soccer, or maybe like a not so good school but very good at soccer, they're both going to want you even more if you are a good student. Because let's say it's not so good school with really good soccer, they want to bring up the whole GPA of the whole team. Let's say it's a really good education school and a really good soccer school, then it's a lot easier to get you in if you're a good player and have good grades. So it's all that stuff that like it doesn't seem important, but because it's off the field. But the same way that stretching, ice baths, proper diet are important to keep your mind right and make you the most appealing candidate, so is education.
Yeah, and that's sports have such a short lifespan as well, and anything can happen to you. And like, your education, once you've got it, no one can take it away from you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But I'm still getting mine now. Just
never
leaving.
Mind. Wealth is in the mind, not the pocket.
So during your time at Harvard, you played with some great characters in that team from all over the world. Who was the guy you would say impressed you the most during your time there?
Ooh, that's a really good question. A lot of players, a lot of really good players that, again, as you know, in college soccer, it's just such a weird window that some people have good seasons and they have bad seasons, stuff like that. The person I think, if I had to pick one, shout out Sam Brown, who plays for the Real Monarchs in the USL Championship right now. This kid came in first game freshman year against Georgetown, actually, and it was just composed. He's one of those players that plays like 6 or 8, and he always knows where he's going with the ball. Even if he's not the fastest, he might not be the hardest tackler, but his just sense of space, sense of timing, sense of passing, and it's a very high compliment, but it's very similar to Pirlo, where it never looks like Pirlo sweating. Never looks like he's exerting himself. And Sam Brown, one of the highest compliments I can give him is he looks the same way. He's just so intelligent. So he was one of the most impressive.
So you spoke about that intelligence there. Like, not a lot of players in the US have that when it comes, especially in the college soccer game. You find like you make a run and it takes them 10 seconds to find you, and by that point you're marked. Like, how many players have you played with during your time in the US that kind of have that extra bit of intelligence, and do you think that's something that should be focused on to take the US soccer to the next level?
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. I can shout out 2 people for that, but the first one shout out is Andrew Wheeler-Amanu, who currently plays for Sacramento Republic, also in the USL Championship. He's a player, grew up playing against him. He played for MPS, then he played for Roxbury Latin, played against him in high school, and then we played together at Harvard. And he's a player that you could always tell he was destined for success because the way he pushed himself was stronger than anyone pushed him. He was exactly that player where he's going to get a ball in a tight space and it's already going the other way. So you make your run regardless because he's so intelligent that he thinks in terms of what's best for the game. He doesn't think in terms of what's best for the team, what's best for the me. He just sees if the ball's on the right side, I know all he's making a run on the left, there it goes. Or I know if Christian's checking to me, I can play into that space before he even gets there because he's thinking in terms of the game, not just the players. So he's very, very special. And then another person I'd like to highlight is probably Ross Friedman, who was 2 years ahead of me at Harvard. Ended up, after he graduated semi-early, got drafted by Columbus Crew and bounced around a little bit with those guys. But he's another player that he was a long ball, dead ball, long throwing specialist. And I think when you have those attributes, you really start to think more in terms of bigger picture. Where can I push the game instead of how can I read the game? He's that person where he'll play a 50-yard long ball into space that even if I don't necessarily see it right away, it's such a pin-perfect positioning and pin-perfect kick that I see it like, oh, okay, I can see what's going, and then I make the run. So he's almost the type of player where he can bring other people into the game, even though he usually played right back or sometimes right mid. So he's a really special, really intelligent player.
So you spoke about some of the guys you played with at Harvard there. Like, was there a joker in that team? Like, I know you're part of one of yourself. What kind of things did you get up to? Like, obviously in the locker room, playing pranks on each other, and then obviously the social aspect of things as well.
I think there are definitely a few jokers, and one thing that I really don't think people understand about Harvard is since everyone like obviously tries so hard to get into school, you think everyone's straight laced all the time. But then there's certain instances where it's like, oh my gosh, this guy's a crazy person, and this guy's a jokester, and it's awesome. One story I'll remember is probably we went as a team to Italy and Spain the summer after my junior year, I believe, as a team. We played Lupa Roma, Villarreal, and AS Roma U20 or something like that.
Hmm.
But I absolutely bopped by AS Roma. But like the night after, just going out in the town and seeing our whole team, young players and old players alike, along with actually our operation manager, shout out to Dude Troszczak, came through, and he is who I actually will single out as probably the biggest joker in terms of unexpected out of everyone, because he was just laughing, cracking jokes, and like just this drinking and just telling stories that we would never hear if the coaches were with us. But like after dinner, we'd gone and done our own thing, and then Drew was like he became one of the boys. So that was a lot of fun. So shout out to him.
Yeah, do you think that's kind of lost in the game today? Like, you don't, like, a lot of kids are like, they take the game so seriously that they lose that fun aspect of things, and it's like, all right,
Absolutely.
you have to loosen up. That's what brings teams together, and being able to take it on the chin, it makes you a stronger character as well.
Absolutely. I think that unfortunately, I think it comes from in America, there's so many different strategies across the board how to develop a good player. When, as you know, in Europe, if you want to be a good player, you join the academy young, you learn how to play a defensive and offensive system, and you continue to build and grow. And I think when the structure and like the academy is that strong and serious, people understand it's time to focus or it's time to cut loose.
Hmm.
Whereas in America, you never really know what you're going to get with a coach. So if the individual doesn't push himself to be serious, then you probably will never achieve as much as you really want to as a player. And that, like you're saying, like people they don't know when to take it easy, when to have fun, because there's not an image, there's not a standard being set by the academy, by the technical director, by the coach.
Yeah, you don't know when to flip that switch and be like, all right, like everyone should be firing on all cylinders right now,
Right.
and then flipping that switch, like, all right, let's have a laugh here, like, let's
Right.
get some team
And
bonding
also,
going.
and I think that's so important as well that if you try to stay on all the time, you're gonna get burned out.
Yeah,
You just are. You need your laughs, you need your downtime, you need your joke session in the ice bath. But when everyone as a team knows it's time to switch it on, that's when you become the most dangerous.
so after Harvard, you ended up out in Australia playing, where we ended up playing with each other. Like, unfortunately, that was the worst decision of my life, having to put
Yeah.
up with you every day. But how did that opportunity first present itself, and what was your time like there?
For sure. I had a great experience. Shout out to Carl Juno, the coach I talked about before. He was my coach at Harvard, and then he ended up getting released by the school. And his wife is from Melbourne, so he ended up relocating back there with her to be close to her family, and he just started working there. And so after I graduated, I was reaching out to as many contacts as possible, seeing if anyone knew about a tryout or an opportunity. And Carl was gracious enough to say, hey, I do some coaching at this club called FC Berlin. Shout out to FC Berlin Lions. They really need a striker. The striker they wanted to sign fell through, so they really could help. And he put me in contact with the coach. I sent him a video, and it worked out well because they signed me without seeing me in person because they needed a player and they needed a player soon because the window was about to close, as you know. And
Hmm.
so it worked out that like if I had to fly down to Australia with that in trial down there, it would have been tough. It's a long way, it's expensive flight, all that stuff. But
Yeah,
the fact that I could go in there already signed gave me a lot of confidence and really helped me enjoy my experience, which I think was one of the best. As you know, the Venator Club where FC Berlin plays is probably the best facility in the league, or
yeah. Apart from the field was terrible.
apart from the field, which they ended up replacing
Yeah,
the year we
after
left. Yeah,
yeah,
the next year.
after we asked them that a million times.
Literally. It was so crazy to me how like we had the grass field,
Yeah,
but
like
instead,
perfect as well. Like,
perfect, right?
but
But
no one would
instead,
let us play on it.
no, you got to save it. Save it for what?
Yeah, save it to look at out the video club window.
Yeah, right. Oh my god.
Yes, it was a great time there. Like, and like we had some good nights out as well. The boys,
Really.
great guys there. Like,
Yeah,
Brezzo, like,
yeah,
Borghese,
yeah.
like,
Gallo.
yeah, Camerad. Like,
Mm, yeah,
they were like great times, but it was just disappointing. Like, how, like, we just, everything went against us in half of the games as well, and that's
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
it'd be like one bounce that was just completely misjudged, and we're down 1-0 after 10 minutes, and then it's like
Right.
we're fighting back the rest of the game.
Right. And I think also that team was recently promoted. Well, I think they'd gone up the year before we got there, and then
Yeah,
just did pulled the Great Escape to on like the final day to not go down. So in terms of that mentality, that like we really need to have a coach that came in and was like, no, we deserve to be here. Let's fight like we deserve to be here. Whereas we had a coach that was kind of like, we were almost got relegated last year. Our goal is to not get relegated this year. Just
yeah,
set the bar a little bit too low so that
yeah.
like when we switch it on, it wasn't all the way on.
Yeah, like, yeah, it was a great guy, but he
Yeah.
just like we just didn't have that. All right, we've got great players in the team like me, you, JT, Gallo.
Mhm.
Like we could have went at teams and just took them on, but
Yeah.
instead we just invited pressure a lot of the time, and that's
Right.
didn't
And
really
that's it.
benefit.
Absolutely. And that's another thing that if you kind of come with a small club mentality, you'll be treated as a small club.
Yeah.
Whereas there are other small clubs who they fight like a big club, but they're smart like a small club, and that's the benefit. That's the balance I think we really could have benefited from. Like
Hmm.
we have 20 minutes to attack, we go at them, we don't get anything out of it, we still shut up shop, make sure we don't concede, keep fighting. I mean, I think were you so your first game was Green Gully or it was
Melbourne Knights.
Melbourne Knights? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. And that
remember
was
I
a great.
set you up and then I
Yeah.
scored the header.
Yep, yep, absolute beauty. And that was a great example where like we kind of just came out slow out of the gate, copped
Yeah,
2 3 right away. But when we like in the second half, we're like, all right, no, we can go at this team.
yeah. I
Let's
think
be bold.
they moved me and you up front together.
Yep, yep,
Like and that was like it completely switched. And then next game they moved us back to the position for.
yeah,
It's like all
yeah,
right, that doesn't
exactly.
make sense.
Again, as is a great guy, but it's too conservative in the way that he was like, all
Yeah,
right, we don't want to expose ourselves too much. And so you just got to have a go sometimes, especially first half of the season.
yeah. So obviously after that you came back to the US and entered the Midwest Pro Soccer Combine. What was that like?
That was very interesting. It was I really did not know what to expect going in, but I liked the setup. So that was located just outside Detroit. I flew over and actually stayed with Alex Anskoff in a hotel. And then I believe it was 4 sessions. It was a morning session that was just like 40 times, 5-10-5 splits, kind of statistics or whatever, like combine
Mm-hmm.
times. Then in the afternoon we played a game. The next day we had a double session, game in the morning, game in the afternoon. And that was definitely a good experience and something that I would recommend for players trying to play at the next level because I was able to shake hands and have my face seen by so many coaches.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it's definitely not the end all be all because the sad reality is you're playing with some players who can play professional and some players who can't play professional. So
Mm-hmm.
you can't expect the standard to be high enough to really make a good impression. So the best thing to do is to go there, score a goal, obviously, score a couple goals. But if you're the defender, you want to make sure your presence is felt more than anything. You got to have a loud voice, commanding instructions, win your tackles, play simple passes, and just so when a coach is looking at you from the outside, they see that this player, no matter who they're playing around, is holding himself to a high standard, and they're
Yeah.
able to do the best they can and show attributes that will be translated to the pro level. Because everyone wants to score goals, everyone wants to play long balls, all that stuff, and that is good and that is important. But if you can show that you hold yourself to a high standard and your game will personally translate, the coach will be able to value that more than, oh, this team won every game or whatever.
Yeah, so obviously worked out well for you. Memphis took the chance on you, and then you were loaned to Forward Madison. How did that help your soccer development during these stages?
For sure. Another piece of advice I would give to people, like we're saying, you got to believe in yourself, got to keep pushing. Because so I actually, from the Midwest Combine, I got invited to trial with Pittsburgh. And I didn't make Pittsburgh, obviously, but because I made it to there, I got invited to try out for Reno. Still didn't make Reno, but I kept going. I was really tough, but I did believe in myself. And from there, I got to try with Memphis, and I made it to Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
I showed up to Memphis. I really enjoyed it. It was a new club, kind of still getting his feet under it. And I honestly don't think I settled enough. Did not play my best in terms of being able to earn a place and get some significant minutes. But I'm very grateful that they decided to send me to Madison, which is one league below in the USL League One, where I was really able to get a little more development and just get your feet get my feet under myself a little more. So I
Mm-hmm.
definitely think in terms of on the field development, it was fantastic because I played, I think, the first 5 games out of 6 and started maybe 3 out of those, and like really had an impact, scored a goal, stuff like that. So that was really enjoyable to be able to just get a fresh start. But also, one of the most important things I think I learned by going to Madison was the ability to treat myself as an individual and a professional and say, okay, I need to move myself to Madison, but I need to do everything in my power to hit the ground running and play as best I can from day one, which is nothing on the field. It is It was foam rolling when I got out of the car because it's a 10-hour drive. It was making sure I didn't stop at McDonald's on the car ride up, and I stopped either to get a Subway sandwich, which is maybe a little bit better, or find an actual deli and to get real good food. It was actually getting a good night's sleep the night before, and it was like when I got there, it probably would have been maybe 4 in the afternoon, and I knew I was like, I'm exhausted, but I need to unpack right away. Because if I don't unpack, then I'm eating dinner and I'm unpacking after dinner, and then I'm going to bed too late. So it's the ability to keep everything in perspective, and that was really valuable.
So most recently, you moved to Ireland there to play for Cabinteely. Unfortunately, COVID has ruined that, and the restrictions aren't allowing you to go back. Was that an experience you thought would have been better than what it's turned out to be?
That's a very hard question, because obviously the best case would be that I was still there and still playing. But at the same time, it was definitely exceeding my expectations. I went in there, I came from a tryout in Germany that unfortunately did not go successfully. So I went to Ireland to a team that was mid table the season before in the first division, or the second level in the Irish pyramid. And so I just went in saying, I love this game, and if I can be as professional as myself, I'll get a lot out of it. And my expectations were completely exceeded, because it was a lot of ballers on that team, a lot of really competitive players, a lot of really committed players. And every single night we went to training, the fact, like more than anything, even if it wasn't sharp, it was competitive. It was intense, and there were tackles. And I'm sure, as you know, the Scottish and the Irish like to get into tackles, but I was thinking, oh, well, training they won't. Games will be leg breakers for sure. And they were just crunching people left and right.
They don't care. If you're getting hit, you're getting hit.
You're getting hit, exactly. And also the squad was like 33 people. Obviously, there was some young boys that were bringing in that aren't fully in the squad, but training would be 25 to 30 people. So the coaches they didn't say it, but like, yo, no, go in. Like, you just if they're not ready for it, if they're playing soft, let them know.
You're good enough. You're old enough.
Exactly. And if you're good enough, you're strong enough.
Yeah.
And
so most importantly, you've actually started up your own social justice foundation, the Oliver White Foundation. There's been a lot going on, especially recently in the US, and I think it's important that we place a great emphasis on this today. So talk to us about, firstly, how you come up with that idea and what your aims and goals are for it.
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing it up. For a long time, I've always wanted to start a foundation. Soccer's always been so good to me, especially as a Black man in the United States, but also just a Black man who's traveled around the world. It's been so incredible that it's opened doors for me to go to different countries, opened doors for me to go to different schools. And I'm so appreciative for that, because it's also helped me just deal with a lot of things that have made me upset myself, whether it's racial or social or whatnot. And that, in terms of the goal of the foundation, I really want to create an organization that can help people the way soccer has helped me. Now, on the website, it's written that the objectives are to spread positivity first and foremost. The second is to highlight racial injustice in the United States. And the third is to shed a light on the disproportionate statistics of police brutality. As you know, Black people are killed by police at an alarmingly high rate. And a lot of people say white people are killed by police as well. But when you consider the number of people who in the country who are Black versus the number of people in this country who are white, the number of Black people should not be killed at such a high alarming rate. So overall, the goal of the foundation is, without a doubt, to spread positivity. I want people out there to know and think of me and think of the foundation as something that just wants to help. You know, there's an old saying, if you're not part of this problem, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Well, I want to be able to look at myself and say, I'm a person that people can always approach and talk about racial issues. People can ask me questions about racial issues. People can look at me as someone who wants to help be positive going forward. I understand that my foundation, small as it is not really ever going to be nationally large, but I want people to know that if I can just do a little bit, hopefully they can do a little bit as well.
Yeah, and it's all about creating that education so that people can improve their mindset on things and not be stuck in that bubble.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think another great thing, so part of the inspiration to starting the foundation, I did an Instagram live fundraiser in June in the wake of the heart of the George Floyd protests, RIP George Floyd, in the heart of the protest. And so many people want to get involved, watch the Instagram live, donating, leaving comments, leaving messages. And the most incredible, heartwarming ones were the people saying, thank you, I never thought about it that way. Because the people who, they might not necessarily they might not be racist, but they've never had to confront the fact of having dark skin. They've had to confront the fact of being judged before you even open your mouth. And I was really happy to be able to share that perspective with certain people.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing you're doing, and you have been an inspiration for a lot of people, and it's opened a lot of people's eyes, which is what people need in this country. Like, especially coming from Europe, like you don't see it until you get here, and it's like, oh shit, like
Mhm.
this is really going on. Like why
Yeah.
after all this time is it still happening?
Right. And the thing that is so heartbreaking to me is I'm sure you see it come from Europe, like all around the world, people love black culture.
Yeah,
People love black hip hop artists, people love black comedians, people love black art, people love black athletes, all that stuff. And especially in America, they love, I mean, you go to any bar, you're gonna hear hip hop.
yeah,
But there's certain people who either are so ingrained in their ways or just so like oblivious that they don't equate being able to create an amazing song with being deserving of human rights.
yeah,
And
exactly.
until it's madness. It doesn't make any sense. So until certain people like on a cultural level are able to discuss this in a general state, in just a general conversation that no, you can't make that joke if you're gonna turn around and listen to Jay-Z. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, like you
And
can't choose one and forfeit the other. Like
right,
they go
absolutely.
together.
Absolutely. Another thing where you see people who go to like people will do racist chants at Napoli games for Koulibaly and players like that, but then they'll turn around and they'll be playing Kanye West in the stadium.
Yeah,
They'll play J. Cole, or they're on their way home, they're listening to Chief Keef or
yeah,
stuff like that. Or they go home and they watch Dave Chappelle, they watch Will Smith in a movie. And it's just such an irrational disconnect to appreciate the culture but not appreciate the person. So
yeah.
I really hope in terms of providing a place for positivity, a place where people can really think about and confront how important it is for Black people and all people to have human rights. That is really what I hope to achieve with the foundation.
Yeah, so cheers for taking the time today, mate. It's been great hearing your journey so far and the exciting things you're up to and the differences you're making in the world. But before we go, what's some advice you could offer out there to future and current student athletes, either still competing or thinking about committing to college to play sports?
Absolutely. And I'm not going to pull a Harry Schwartz and say work hard.
You know how his brain doesn't function as well as everyone else's?
It's not a soccer ball. He's not. He's not. The one thing I will say in terms of people who want to achieve a certain goal, I think I think a great strategy is to work backwards. So I knew, well, when I finally decided, okay, I want to go to Harvard, I know I need to achieve certain things. I need certain grades, certain SAT scores, and certain performance metrics in terms of soccer. So looking down the road, I knew the best thing to do is to make my GPA increase every year. Obviously, everyone wants to have a 4.0. I didn't have a 4.0. I ended with maybe a 3.4, but I had like when I decided I wanted to go to Harvard, my GPA was around a 2.9. So I look forward down the line. I said, okay, when I apply to Harvard my senior fall, I want to make sure I have a better GPA senior fall than I did junior spring, and a better GPA junior spring than I did junior fall, and a better GPA junior fall in terms compared to sophomore spring. So that was the first aspect. The second aspect was I wanted to make sure my SAT scores improved every single time. So I looked down the road when SAT testing was available and I said, okay, when do I have time to study and when do I think I can get my best score? And let's look down the road at the goal and then work backwards for the best days to take the SATs. And then the soccer part took care of itself for the most part, but I knew I wanted to win State Cup and I wanted to win the ISL both at least once before I even applied to Harvard, because those are just things that are undeniable. That the team did
Mm,
that, so and so is part of this team. We at least can recruit him. We don't know if we can get him. We can at least recruit him. I was so fortunate to be involved in two very, very competitive and very, very dedicated teams. Shout out FC Blazers. Shout out Nobles Varsity Boys Soccer. Both those teams won 2 championships in my time, and I'm so thankful for everyone who was on that team. So I think a really good goal, a really good advice is see your goals down the road and then work backwards in terms of what steps you need to take to achieve it.
yeah, that's some great advice. Like you've looked to the future and see how you can get there, like and start working towards it. And that's creating these small goals for yourself just gives you that bit of motivation each time as well. Like, all right, this is what I'm working for every time.
No doubt.
That's great, mate. Thanks very much. It's a pleasure as always.
Thanks for having me on. Good to see you, bro.